You promised yourself that this month would be different. This was going to be the month you finally started saving. You ran the numbers. You knew, almost to the dollar, how much was supposed to be left over at the end. And then the month ended. The money was gone, and you had no real idea where it went. Sound familiar? Here is what almost everyone will tell you about that. They'll say you lack discipline. They'll say you have no willpower. They'll say that if you just tried a little harder, wanted it a little more, you'd be sitting on a comfortable cushion of savings by now. But the real reason you can't save is far stranger than willpower. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because saving money has almost nothing to do with discipline. And the people who are quietly getting rich aren't stronger than you. They've just stopped relying on willpower entirely. Let me show you why. Start with the most famous willpower experiment ever run. In the late 1960s, a psychologist named Walter Mischel sat small children down at a table at Stanford and placed a single marshmallow in front of each one. The deal was simple. Eat this one now, or wait 15 minutes alone and get two. Then he left the room. Some kids caved instantly. Some squirmed, covered their eyes, sang to themselves, and held out for the second marshmallow. And for decades, this became the great parable of success. The children who waited, the story went, had grit, they had self-control, they were destined to do better in life. It's a clean story. It's also incomplete. Because years later, other researchers looked closer, and they noticed something the original story missed. Whether a child waited didn't just depend on some inner reserve of willpower. It depended heavily on whether the child believed the promise. If the adult in the room had already proven unreliable, if the world had taught that child that a promised reward might never actually arrive, then eating the marshmallow now wasn't weakness. It was the smart move. Sit with that for a second. The failure to wait wasn't a character flaw. It was a reasonable response to an uncertain future. And that is the first crack in everything you've been told about saving. Because saving is the marshmallow test, played out across your entire adult life. Every single day, your money asks you the same question. Spend me now, or wait for something better later. And every single day, your brain has to decide whether later is even real. Here's the problem. To your brain, later barely exists. There's a quirk in human wiring that behavioral scientists call present bias. In plain English, it means a reward you can have right now feels enormous, and the exact same reward, delayed, feels small and faint and almost theoretical. $20 today and $20 next month are mathematically identical. But they do not feel identical. The one you can touch now lights your brain up. The one waiting in the future is a rumor. This is why the dinner out always wins against the savings account. It isn't that you don't value your future, it's that your future doesn't feel like it's yours yet. And that brings us to the strangest finding of all. A researcher named Hal Hirschfield ran a series of studies where he scanned people's brains while they thought about themselves, first their present self, then their future self, decades down the line, and he found something almost eerie. For many people, when they imagined their future self, the brain lit up the same way it does when thinking about a complete stranger. Read that again. On a neurological level, the version of you that retires, the one who needs that money, can register to your brain like someone you've never met. So when you choose not to save, you're not really stealing from yourself. You're handing your money to a stranger you can't quite picture. And of course, you'd rather keep it. Who wouldn't? This is why willpower is the wrong tool. You cannot grit your way into caring about a stranger every single day for 40 years. Nobody can. But it gets deeper. Because there's another force working against you, and this one is sneakier. Two researchers, Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, spent years studying what happens to the mind under financial pressure, and they wrote about it in a book called Scarcity. Their finding was counterintuitive and a little uncomfortable. When money is tight, it doesn't just shrink your bank account, it shrinks your bandwidth, it eats up mental room. When you're worried about money, a piece of your attention is always running in the background, calculating, bracing, worrying. And that running tax on your mind makes it harder to plan, harder to resist, harder to make the patient long-term choice. The very situation that most demands careful saving is the one that most sabotages your ability to do it. So picture what you're actually up against. A future self your brain treats as a stranger. A present moment that feels 1,000 times louder than next year. And a mind that gets foggier the more pressure it's under. And then someone has the nerve to tell you the problem is that you just need more discipline. Do you see how absurd that is now? So if it isn't willpower, what do the people who actually build wealth do differently? Here's the twist. They're not winning the willpower battle. They're refusing to fight it at all. Think about your own life. How many of your best money habits actually required you to feel motivated each day? Almost none of the durable ones. The things that stick are the things you set up once and never have to decide again. That's the whole secret. Wealthy savers don't outmuscle temptation. They build a world where the saving happens before temptation ever shows up. The economist Richard Thaler understood this better than almost anyone. With his colleague Shlomo Benartzi, he designed a program with a deceptively boring name, Save More Tomorrow. The idea was simple. People are bad at giving up money they already have, but asking them to commit a slice of a future raise, money they've never held, money that hasn't arrived yet, that's easy. It doesn't feel like a loss, because you never had it to lose. So people signed up. Their savings rose automatically every time their pay rose. They never had to feel the pinch, never had to summon willpower on a hard month, because the decision was already made. And savings rates in those programs climbed dramatically. Notice what just happened there. The willpower didn't increase. It was engineered out of the equation entirely. This is the thing nobody tells you. Saving is not a feeling you have to maintain. It's a system you set up once. The amount that leaves your account automatically, before you ever see it, before your present biased brain even gets a vote, is the amount that actually gets saved. Everything left exposed to your daily willpower is just a temptation waiting for a weak afternoon. And here is where the modern world turns the screws. Because everything around you has been built to exploit the exact wiring we just talked about. One-tap checkout exists to erase the pause between wanting and buying, the tiny pause where your future self might have spoken up. Subscriptions exist because a small charge you don't notice beats a big one you'd resist. Buy now, pay later exists because it shoves the cost so far into the future that the stranger version of you has to deal with it, not the one holding the phone. Your environment is a marshmallow test that has been rigged, not by accident, by design. Every frictionless payment is one more moment where now gets to shout and later doesn't get to speak. So no, you're not undisciplined. You're a perfectly normal brain running normal software in a world specifically engineered to drain you. And that should feel like relief, not shame. Because a willpower problem feels like a flaw in who you are. But a system problem? A system problem you can fix. You don't need to become a different, stronger person. You just need to change the order of operations. Move the saving to the front, before the spending, before the deciding, before the wanting. Add friction where the world removed it. Build one quiet automatic rule, and then go live your life while it works without you. That's the part nobody finds glamorous. There's no dramatic moment of triumph, no white-knuckle resistance. The money just moves, on its own, in the background, while your willpower stays completely uninvolved, which is exactly why it works. So let's go back to the beginning. You promised yourself this month would be different. And maybe, for the first time, you can see why every other month wasn't. Not because something was wrong with you, but because you were trying to win, by hand, a fight that was never meant to be fought by hand. The strangest part of getting rich is that it asks for less effort than you think, not more. It asks you to stop trusting your willpower and start trusting a system. It asks you to take care of a stranger, the future you, before that stranger can become you. So here's the only question that really matters. Not whether you have enough discipline. You have plenty. You've just been spending it in the wrong fight. The question is whether the money has already moved before you ever get to decide. Because the day it does, quietly, automatically, without needing you to be strong, something shifts. The future stops being a stranger, and you start, slowly, almost without noticing, to become rich in the one way that actually lasts. So go set up the rule. Then come back and ask yourself, are you rich yet?